First of all, I'd like to thank Santoshi Harsh here for this opportunity for me personally. For me personally, it's pretty nostalgic to be back here because I remember when THUB was found. 2015, I was here. We were managing the communication for THUB at that part then. And then coming back here to a different building altogether, it feels great, of course. But before all of that, you know, landed this morning, and trust me, the heat in Bombay is different, the heat in Hyderabad is different, and it is hot here, right? And what are we looking at? We're looking at 3 o'clock, it's a little post-evening. We've got some more time, and I think thank God it's Friday as well, right? So I'm gonna say something that I think resonates with every audience in India. So it goes like this. Ooh la 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 ooh le oh, ooh la la la. Come on, guys, I need some participation. God, this is the first time I've been in a hall where it's pin drop silence. I mean, this is something that I had in my school before the principal walked in, God damn, no one speaks because they fear getting whacked out. But again, come on, let me hear that. Ooh la 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 la, ooh le oh. Superb, guys. Do you know what's so special about this? Apart from the fact that it is the jingle that resonates with India, it is one of the most iconic jingles, marketing tactics that has ever been used. This jingle apparently has one of the most iconic PR-driven marketing campaigns that leverage virality, music, sports to create a widespread brand recall, right? So when we talk about this, right, I don't think anybody in this room or anybody outside has never heard of this jingle, right? It resonates so well with us, and what has it done for us, right? The first time we want to have beer, we say Kingfisher, right? And that is the power of great communication, right? That is the power of what PR can deliver for you, right? So apart from the fact that it not only created, the kind of brand association that the celebrities that they brought on to associate with this sort of program, the endorsements that they got, right? What this campaign did, it created something called as user-generated content. When cricket matches were being played across stadiums in India, people used to sing this slogan. And that is when it reaches pop culture status, right? How do you do that? And that is the most fascinating thing about this. So starting with this, so I thought it's very important to set the context here, the power of PR, what it can deliver, right? Moving ahead, I'm going to take you through 5 examples of how PR has delivered value. Let's look at that one by one. What we have in front of us is Airbnb. The fun fact about Airbnb is that when they founded Airbnb, these guys were actually running the company by swiping credit cards. $30,000 is what the founders apparently rolled up in terms of credit card unpaid bills. And they were actually figuring out, how do we do this? That's when they struck up with this great idea saying that, hey, you know what, let's do a campaign. And that time, interestingly, right, there was a Democratic National Convention happening, right? And they said, hey, let's launch this campaign, which was the Obama and John McCain campaign. So what they did is they created this limited edition cereal boxes. So ideally, if you go to US to buy a cereal box, it costs $4, right? They sold this as a limited edition for $40. Ironically, they generated $30,000 out of that, right? That was enough to clear that credit card bill that they had. But the fun fact is this: the amount of buzz the campaign created in the US market, right, it got the attention of the Y Combinator. And of course, the rest is history, right? So what does PR do here? What did PR do for somebody like an Airbnb, right? It built trust. It created a certain kind of legitimacy for the brand, right? And today, as we all know, that Airbnb has grown to a global hospitality chain. Now let's look at another example, Dropbox. What are the challenges that these guys faced? The fundamental challenge was market acceptability. Despite being a brand, they wanted to, people were knowing about it, but the adoption rate was pretty low. So that was the challenge that these guys were facing. They said, okay, how do I circumvent this challenge, and how do I use PR as a tool to communicate our message here, right? The company used this positioning where they said, hey, you know what, we need to be reaching out to more and more people. One is bring in more legitimacy, having more users, right? That is the strategy that they followed, right? They leveraged blogs and thought leadership articles to drive their thought, drive their communication, drive their message, right? Platforms like TechCrunch actually help them gain that sort of visibility. So what it essentially did, within 15 months, within a span of 15 months, from a user base of 1 lakh, it took the user base to more than around 4 million people, right? So that is what we're trying to impress upon you, is that how using viral content today, or how leveraging the right kind of platform, let it be a technology platform, how do you align that to your startup, right? How you can leverage these sort of platforms to take your business to the next level. How do you build trust? How do you build credibility with your mass, right? So understanding that is the first basic step towards generating that sort of viral PR for yourself. We all have heard about Elon Musk, right? But there are two names. There are two names on that board there. You can see there's Martin and there's Mark. How many of you all have heard of Martin and Mark? They are the co-founders of Tesla. Interesting, right? But the face of the brand is Elon. Now, what did Tesla do to leverage Elon? They said, this guy is famous, he knows, his face is all over, spread across the media, let's leverage him for the business, right? So the launch strategy not only focused on Elon, being part of each and every launch that they did across the globe, right? But also they created a lot of product launches, they created a lot of excitement around the category, what they were looking at doing. They spoke about sustainability, right? That how electric vehicles are going to be changing the future of people commuting from point A to point B. That sort of communication kind of resonated well with people, because today sustainability happens to be one of the larger goals that humanity is trying to figure out, right? How do we make this planet cooler, right? And SDG goals is something very critical for en masse, right? So when you align your business to a larger foundational goal that it solves, right? This is so if you're in, let's say, for example, you are a climate tech company, and you said, okay, this is what I'm intending to do. But if from your communication standpoint, what you need to focus on is how do I align my communication to the larger goal that I want to talk about? So if there is a larger goal that humanity is trying to achieve, how do I connect it to that so that you're able to align your messaging, right? And that is where that virality happens, because people like companies who are trying to save the planet. Humanity loves companies that are trying to save the planet, period. That's how it works. Moving on. Let's talk about a little closer home, right? So Ritesh, of course, we know what was it, when he came to the market, when he started becoming more visible, was positioned as one of the youngest successful entrepreneurs to launch OYO Room, right? What's interesting is the kind of narrative that they built around OYO Room, right? Interesting about what he spoke about, the personal entrepreneurship journey of his, right? Discussing, that's what something that he used to majorly discuss in his interviews. What is the mission that OYO is trying to drive into the market, right? So how do you build something like that? As an entrepreneur, one of the fundamental first is how committed are you to your company's mission, right? And how often, how repeatedly often you keep communicating that. I'll give you a personal example, right? I used to know, they were a client of ours, a client called Hyperloop Transportation Technology. They were there all across the media a couple of years ago, before COVID, wanting to create pods that will take human beings from point A to point B at super light speed. This individual, the CEO of the company, called Bebop Dresta, we had the good part of working for them in India and the Middle East, right? This gentleman, every presentation, day in, day out, that I've seen him make, used to laugh at the same punctuation, used to smirk at the same punctuation, and used to crack the same jokes to the audience. And everything that he used to say, repeatedly hammering the same message. His slides used to always begin about climate, pollution, how is he planning to save the planet? As I said, that is what it is, right? Your mission, focus to your mission, how does it align to the larger objective, the larger goals, and that is what you need to be talking about. While of course, you guys will have questions to ask me, write it down, or if you think that can't wait, raise your hands, more than happy to take them on. Boat is a brand, of course, that we're all familiar with. I think most of us have used the product. I myself use a Boat product, and I think it's a great product to have, right? Now, a relatively, recently formed company, 2016, if you look at it, right? But look at the market valuation that they've been able to generate, right? 1.5 billion, right? So what was the story? The entire part about affordability, the entire part about the Make in India, right? When you've got challengers, right? You've got Harman, you've got JBL, you've got Sony, you're competing and challenging with these brands, right? How do you communicate that? The essential part, right? The focus was how a company like Boat, being an Indian company, was able to come up with products that are at par with global products that are there, that are available along with global products like a Sony or JBL, right? And that is the communication that they focused on. The affordability part, the innovation part, the technology part, right? And that sustained communication actually helped them create. And of course, the other thing that they, of course, did was, partner with influencers, partner with celebrities, because, of course, that kind of, drives a lot of value to you. So let's say, for example, you are a startup, you've got funded, okay, you don't know, you're saying, okay, now how do I get the kind of attention that I want to do? Identify the audience that you want to reach out to, their influencers, their belief systems, what are they? And then try and figure out, okay, if this is the influencer that they listen to, how do I align with this influencer to get my message out? And that's what exactly Boat did. Align to the influencer to get the message out. So if you look at the Oyo example also, right? What did they focus on? Did Oyo really focus on getting a celebrity on? But every company has a certain strategy, communication or a PR strategy when it comes to reaching out or communicating to their mass, right? So it depends what product you're taking. Some companies say, hey, you know what, we will not do celebrity endorsements. We'll chuck the whole mile by ourselves, right? Companies do well. They talk about innovation. They talk about passion, right? They talk about technology. They talk about a lot of other things, but it actually helps them, save on marketing dollars. I mean, when you look at the Elon Musk example itself, right? There was no need. I mean, of course, he's the poster boy of technology across the globe, right? That's one part of it. But what does it do to your brand is that it saves on the critical advertising budget. Advertising budgets are massive, right? Today, if you have to run a PR campaign versus an advertising campaign, your ad campaign budgets are going to be phenomenally skyrocketing, right? Now, when you have PR to substantiate that for you, it works magic for you. We'll come to that a little later, but I'm just trying to reinforce the fact that how you can deliver effective communication in using PR, right? And actually, it saves on marketing budgets as well. Closer home, I have a very interesting story to share here. So there are four numbers. There were four numbers earlier on the slide. One was the number 1. One is the number 4. Then, of course, the number 12. The number 1, and sorry, in between there was a number 75. So the number 1 was when Samarth Sethia, the founder of Mr. MilkMan, came to work with J&B. One client. One client, 4 years, impactful communication, 75 clients, and within 4 years exited with 12 million. Got bought over by dairy.com, which is the largest dairy aggregator in North America. Let's look at his case study. So what was it that the ask was, right? He said, okay, those are the communication objectives that I want to achieve: create brand awareness, communicate the technology, value proposition, and demonstrate intellectual capital. These are 3 things that they wanted to focus on, because being a technology SaaS startup, right? The focus was, how do I communicate my technology? How do I build that sort of brand awareness? B2B company, right? Now, we're not a B2C company, we're a B2B company, so we don't want to be. So this is one of the if I have to tell you that amongst a number of questions that I keep getting asked, one that tops the list is, I am a B2B company, do I need to do marketing or do I need to do PR, right? Let me tell you this, let it be whether you are a B2B company, a B2C company, or a B2B2C company, whatever that nature is, right? It doesn't matter. What matters is how effectively you are able to communicate your message, key message to the audience, and that's what matters the most, right? Coming back here, the objective was create brand awareness, communicate the technology value proposition, and demonstrate intellectual capital. So what do we do? Our strategy focused on these 7 pillars. One, of course, is the advocacy part of it. where we said, okay, one of the key things about communication is to build a relationship with the media, right? Which means that you are, today they do not know about you. You need to create a positive disposition about you in their mind. How do we do that? So relationships matter, right? But we'll come to the relationship part a little later because there's a very interesting twist to the entire relationship gambit here. Then, of course, focus on profiling and interviews because there are two parts to this. One is the brand awareness and the other is the thought leadership part of it, right? Focus on profiling and interviews, participating in trend stories, leveraging milestones. For example, they've got a funding, there's a new client acquisition that has happened, they want somebody, they've got a new CTO on board. Keep communicating to the masses so that you are visible, right? And the more visible you are, the more attention you get from your set of customers, your target audience, right? We also shared some critical case studies with the media, which of course helped them kind of gain the larger brand visibility. Apart from that, wherever there were technology conferences or thought leadership, where someone could go and talk about thought leadership in that space, we ensured that that happens as well. And of course, to build the thought leadership, there was a lot of blogs written, opinion articles were published, so on and so forth. But let's look at the impact here. What is the kind of impact that it did, right? He became the poster boy of dairy technology in India. 2019, he was awarded the 75th Platinum Jubilee Award by All India Food Processors Association. 2020, he was Forbes 30 Under 30 Asia Entrepreneur of the Year. 2021, he became the Forbes Entrepreneur of the Year India. And of course, 2021, he sold dairy.com to, he sold MilkMan to dairy.com. What is interesting to note here is that one client, the only investment that was ever done in any sort of communication was PR. So one client to 75 plus client, 4 years, sustained communication, and this is what you get. Invest. So one of the first things that, the question that I get asked is, when do I start communicating? People say, okay, should I start at seed stage? Should I start at idea stage? Should I wait for my funding to come from my investors? Should I start then? Start at the day you think you're ready to communicate to your target audience that, hey, this is what I'm doing. Are you, I believe that one of the most fundamental key is, do you believe in your product? Because if you believe in your product, you want to communicate about it, you want to talk to the market about it, you want to tell people about it, right? Do that. And that is the essence here, right? Belief in your product takes you places. Somewhat that every given platform used to keep hammering the same thing. The kind of PR that we were able to do, right, it just skyrocketed in terms of the kind of visibility that it got him, right? The Forbes article enabled him, the Forbes Asia article enabled him to get the attention of global investors. That's how Dairy.com came to know about him, right? This little guy operating out of India. And trust me, this guy was just 24 when he came to us. And 29, 12 million in the bank, and I remember he said, Jay, he was sitting at the Rosette Hotel in the Himalayas when he called me and said, Jay, 12 million in the bank, right? And that is the kind of people I love, right? Those kind of success stories that people want to write, right? Let's look at something else. No, if I just, is there something else? Yeah. This company is very close to my heart, simply because, I come from a certain background in the defense space, so yes. Indrajaal also should be close to all of you, simply because it is a Hyderabad-based company, right? What this company has done is, this company is the first company globally to create an autonomous anti-drone solution, right? So when I say anti-drone, people think, okay, is it another drone that is getting launched? It is not a drone. It is a technology solution that has been created that integrates multiple technologies together. What I have seen in the space is what Rafael or Dassault have done is create point solutions, but not the entire suit in itself. And the challenging part is, if you are using, in the defense space, let's say if you're using a Rafael technology, you can only buy a Rafael technology to boost it up. You cannot buy a Dassault and integrate it. It doesn't work that way. What Indrajaal did is they broke that and they said, hey, you know what? My technology is autonomous. It can be interoperable. You can get any technology. You want to get a counter-drone system from some other place. You want to get a weapons fusion. You want to get a net gun from some other place. We can integrate any goddamn thing for you. And the best part, it covers 4,000 kilometers. a Hyderabad-based company. So let's quickly read through this. Indrajaal is the world's only comprehensive drone defense capable of protecting all categories of drones. First of its kind, wide area distributed unified defense system, identifying, assessing, deciding, and acting against all kind of threats, which is basically UAVs, smart ammunition, smart zones, incoming missiles, low RCS threats. RCS stands for radio cross-section, autonomously. Indrajaal has a coverage of around 3,000, 4,000 kilometers, leveraging 12 technologies, AI, blah, 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 all of that, right? Again, what is the ask here? Creating brand awareness, because new company, right, 2021. So the interesting part is that this company spent close to a decade in R&D, 10 years in R&D before they actually launched in 2021. And that is the proof, right? They launched with the commitment of 10 years of research backing that say, hey, you know what, we've spent 10 years of doing this. But where did the idea come from? The idea came to the founder because he was part of DARPA, which is the defense program, the defense autonomous program of the US Army, right? That's they run this program, and he was as part of an alumnus from Carnegie Mellon. He was at DARPA working there, and that's how the idea struck him, right? Well, because, and this was way back in 2000, DARPA was working on autonomous vehicles. So you can imagine the innovation gap. You know, we are talking about autonomy right now, or let's say probably the last 5 to 10 years, we're talking about autonomous systems, autonomous vehicles. DARPA has been talking about autonomous vehicles right from the beginning of the onset of the 2000s. The technology gap here. Of course, the same grind in terms of what do we talk about. It's not what do we talk, right? It's how we talk, right, in terms of the messaging out here. What is the impact of the communication that we were able to get, right? Over 300 plus media publications from both domestic and international covered him. The leadership team is co-voted speaker. Today, I take great pride in this, that today Indrajaal is the only company that I know of within, of course, in my startup, which is part of a UPSC exam questionnaire. They ask, tell us about Indrajaal, tell us about anti-drone technology from Indrajaal. And I take great pride in that. And of course, if you check YouTube, you will find hundreds of user-generated content which talks about Indrajaal anti-drone solution. What is the business impact that it has had? It is now part of mainstream defense narration. The technology is globally recognized. They receive RFIs from government and distance establishments, and of course, today reduces sales cycle, which is the most critical part, right? Forget about getting RFIs, forget about getting recognized. For any entrepreneur, for any startup entrepreneur, how do I reduce my sales cycle? How do I ensure that my pre-sales team is able to sell well, right? How do I do that? And that is where visibility comes in. That is where brand awareness comes in. So if at all you don't have brand awareness, the challenge is that people will think that, hey, you know, the difference between I know you vis-a-vis who are you? That is the thing when you go into a room, right? That's the fundamental shift and the fundamental difference that we're talking about. So visibility is key. What do we learn from the Indrajaal case study is that 21 to 25, today we're looking at that sort of a gap here. The visibility that media attention has got him, the credibility that it has bought him, and of course, last but not the least, the validation for the technology that it is a proven technology. They're also, interestingly, just last week, they got recognized by the anti-drone, it's a committee of 12 bureaucrats sitting out of Delhi. So it's called ARDTC, right? So it's basically Anti-Rogue Drone Committee or something like that. The only private company in India to be recognized in the anti-drone space. Last but not the least, Find, written backwards, a cybersecurity company. I wanted to share this example simply because I believe a lot of people out here would be closer to, you know, understanding this much better. And I've got some good examples out here when I'm talking about NIF, right, in terms of what is the approaches. The approach that we had in terms of communication for NIF was very different compared to these two companies that we spoke about, right? So what is NIF2? It's a cloud native SIEM, you know, SIEM, UAPS, SOAR, et cetera, platform that delivers analytics at scale. It's a combination of multiple technologies together, works in the finance. It's a decade-old company, been in the space. It's not a startup, but but I still wanted to talk about it because from a communication standpoint, I wanted to show insights on what you as a startup can do if you want to be using these platforms to communicate. right? So two things out here: demonstrate technology capital, build market recognition. So 5 things that we want to do. What did we do? Strategically place product and comparison reviews on product comparison platforms, shadow marketing on Reddit and Quora, strategically place articles in international and domestic publications, publish product updates and milestones, on-site technical content publishing. That's something that we did. 5 things that we did, right, to take this company forward. So if you're a technology company, right, a technology startup, and I believe most of you are, and I'm sure there will be a lot of technology review platforms, product comparison platforms that you can actually focus on. This is more cybersecurity specific. There's platforms like PeerSpot, TrustRadius, Technify, GetAmp, TechPlus, Apollo.io, SaaS Hub, etc. So there are in your domain as well, whatever domain that you're operating in, I'm sure there would be product comparison platforms, there would be review platforms. Ensure that your products are mentioned there. Ensure that you're getting reviewed in those platforms. It's very important to get that done. Either you pay for that or you can, there are 2 ways to do it. One, of course, is the platforms take a certain fee to get it done, or of course, there are a lot of free platforms as well to get your product comparisons done. That's one of the fundamental first key. Ensure that you're visible, right? And when you're doing comparison, figure out who's the peer that you want to focus on, right? Out here, they chose a totally different kind of peer circle. They chose Splunk and IBM QRadar, et cetera, as their peer in this space. But be very careful when you as a startup, when you say, okay, who's my competitor? Many times I hear this, right? When startups tell me, ask them, who's your competitor? Oh, I don't have competition. God damn, I'm sure everyone has competition, right? So it's very important that when you are reviewing your product against a certain benchmark, take the top guy in the market and review against him, right? Second, of course, is shadow marketing on Reddit and Quora. Great platforms, actually, that you guys can leverage to market your product, where you can write about, you can do organic advocacy. That's something you can focus on, engagement. You can publish blogs, tech updates. So it's trust me, the kind of buzz that you can create, the kind of conversations that you can have by focusing on platforms like Reddit. And of course, there are other platforms as well, but Reddit and Quora tops the list here. Is something that you can actually look at doing on the shadow marketing part of it, right? So this is some examples here that what we did. Why is, so this is like, for example, you post a question to the market, right? What is the best security information event management SIM system for large enterprise? And then, of course, you give it an answer, right? What are the benefits and disadvantages of using SIM tool for security options? So these platforms, you ask a question, you post the answer there, which in a way, that's why it's called shadow marketing, right? Where you're directly not marketing a question, you are posing a question. Let's say, for example, your customer has a certain challenge in a certain area, right? So you take that as a hook, the question as a hook, and then implant your answer to that, connect your answer to that hook, right? That's what you focus on. What did that do? Amplified reach, diverse the entire content creation, boosted the social proof of the company, got rapid responses to trend, increased engagements, more traffic to the website. The other thing is, of course, strategically placing articles is something that we did for them. Getting articles placed in domestic and international publications. Of course, this Forbes, DQ, Check, Security, Boulevard. So look at publications which are read by your target audience. Do not go to media. I think today I get this a lot on my Instagram, and I keep getting emails. They say, for 15,000, you will get XYZ publication. Why don't you? Don't fall for that bait. I'll tell you why later. When you got to build credibility, it has to be an organic approach towards building credibility, right? You cannot build credibility by paying somebody. It doesn't work that way. You can, advertising, we've got comparison about advertising and PR a little later on the slide. But yes, focus on building credibility by aligning yourself to publications in media that resonates with your target audience. That's what you need to focus on. Then, of course, product updates and milestones, what's happening in the company. The key is communication. The key is that keep communicating to the audience. Let it be through media, let it be through newsletters, let it be through whatever channel that you want to focus on, whichever you think is better. But as a startup founder, the fundamental first is that be visible. Let your target audience, let your target customer profile know that you exist. While you know that they exist, let them also know that you exist. And of course, last but not the least, this is something you have great control over. Create your website like a resource hub. Ensure that your traffic increases towards your website. People are able to come more and more to your website by publishing great articles on your website, right? Basically, technical articles. Do not write thought leadership articles. Write technical articles. You guys are tech entrepreneurs, techpreneurs, so write tech-related thought leadership, right? That's what you need to focus on. What did it do? The business impact, of course, brand awareness led to reduced pre-sales time. Interestingly, the 5-star Gartner peer rating they got and they also got compared to top cybersecurity vendors in the world, like Splunk, IBM, Curel, Logpoint, and Logarithm, right? So a Gartner 5-star rating is cool, right? And also on PeerSpot, they got rated at 7.6 out of 10 in terms of a positive disposition, from consumers or et cetera, that people are using their product, right? The point that I want to drive home here is two things. One, communicating constantly, but using the right tool, the right message, and of course, the right medium. I hope that is clear. Okay. Now comes the question about the eternal battle between advertising and public relations. The difference is quite clear out here. Advertising says, I'm trustable, come to me, while visible says, it's about, believe me, it's trustable, right? We are a great company, they are a great company. What PR does, what advertising cannot do for you, is build third-party credibility, right? And third-party credibility is key when it comes to building long-term reputation, right? So, I mean, let's look at it this way. A lot of young guys here, right? It's like going to a girl and saying that, hey, I'm a great guy, vis-a-vis her friend saying to her that, hey, no, he's a great guy. That's the difference, if that argues well here. Right. Now, let's look at a little more in depth into, the difference, what it does, right? So, of course, advertising is paid, reputation is earned. Both are text and visual, right? When I say text, there's print, there is, of course, television, YouTube, OTT, et cetera, that you can look at for both of them. In advertising, of course, you have complete control over the content. Media, of course, you do not. When you're, let's say, using PR as a tool, you do not have control over the content because it is subject to editorial policies. Advertising is 100x more expensive than public relations. What advertising is good at is, in terms of its value, what it does is you want to generate short-term buzz, advertising is great. You want to build long-term credibility, focus on PR, right? From a validation perspective, PR articles, when you read about a company in a publication, right? Let's say, for example, you read the Times of India or the Hindustan Times or let's say the Economic Times or Andhra Prabha, whatever publication that you read. When you read in that publication vis-a-vis seeing an ad, there is a huge difference. The believability, the trust, right? The brand affinity is much more when it is there is a third-party validation involved here. I think I've covered all of that, though, right? Oh yeah, there is, of course, guaranteed placement, and of course, from a PR perspective, we PR practitioners need to convince the media that, why this company is great and why you need to write about this company. But when it comes to advertising, that you're paying for it, so there's no challenge there. So let's talk about three things. Why should PR matter for you? There are these 5 points. One is, of course, builds brand credibility and trust. For a startup, right, I think the fundamental first is, how do I build credibility, right? Because one of the key things about sales or increasing sales or wanting more people to buy your product is building the right kind of credibility. So ensuring that you are getting the right kind of media coverage in that area, which builds your brand credibility, is super critical here. Second part is why it should matter to startups is that it's cost effective. Of course, we discussed that it is much cost effective. It is cost effective when compared to advertising. The third thing is, which is the most critical, and I think all of you startup founders are looking at, is how do I get the attention of angel investors or, you know, other kind of investors. Trust me when I say this, investors actually come to know about startups when they read about startups, right? They cannot visualize startups. They do not dream about you guys at night. They read about you, they hear about you, they read about you, and that is when they get interest, they generate interest about you. The more you're written about, the more interest that they generate about you, and they would want to fund a company. They want to back a company that has got credibility, that has got trust. That's what they want to do. So and this is something that I've been told, and I've heard from a lot of investors, that before they go meet somebody, the first thing that they do is Google up this guy, see what the media has written about him, what is the kind of third-party validation that he's got. They don't focus on what ads he's published, nothing of that sort. Of course, it helps you differentiate from competition. That's one of the key things that it helps you do. You know, while of course advertising is, as I said, it's short term, but long term, when you're looking at you know, building credibility and differentiating yourself from the competition, that's what PR is able to deliver for you, right? In terms of crisis, PR actually helps a lot, because it is the only tool today. I mean, we're going to be talking about crisis after a couple of slides from now, right? And how PR really can help mitigate crisis. I'll give you a classic example here, right? I was handling a company called Cummins, which I'm sure some of you must have heard is an engine manufacturing company, right? They have their production facility, a large production facility in Pune. They were facing an employee backlash. You know, they had apparently asked 4 of their employees who were part of the union to leave the company, and the union created an unrest, and it became a huge fiasco in the company, to a point where the police picket had to be called, right? There was a rioting outside the company, to an extent where the CEO, the global CEO, told the India CEO that if this continues, we will pull out of Pune. We'll take the company out of Pune. It came to that. I mean, imagine the level of crisis. The advice that we gave the company was that 2 things that we saw from a broader market trend, right? One, elections were around the corner. So that is exactly the reason why political parties were getting involved in this, to rake up the issue and talk about it. And second, as an organization, your stand that you take has to be based on ethical grounds. And if your stand is based on ethical grounds, no matter what the trial by fire is, you will come out of it successfully. And that's exactly the advice we gave Ananta Lawlikar, the CEO then of Cummins India. 2 things. One, let the elections go by, because once the election goes by, the support that the rioters are getting from political organizations, that will die down. Exactly that happened. Second thing that we did is we wanted to tell our story too as well to the media. We said, hey, you were publishing stories that we sacked them. I think it's important to know the reason behind why they got sacked, right? So we held a press conference. We called all the media possible and said, hey, this is the true reason. What did that do? From a negative coverage in the media about Cummins did this, you know, and it's a listed company, guys, right? It's hitting the stock. From a negative disposition, within 2 weeks, we were able to bring it to neutral, to positive, and that's what it did, right? So the entire process was handheld by effective PR, you know, managing media there, right? So that is the second thing that communication does. And finally, of course, what we did as a company, Cummins did as a company, they said, we're not taking these 3 guys or 4 guys back. They're gone, it's gone. They said, today if we bend back and take those guys, there could always be more chance of more people creating this kind of little trouble. We don't want that. They said, no matter what union, what affiliation you have, we are not going to take you back. And that stand actually helped till today. Cummins has never had, till date, an employee unrest. Nobody, no blue collar, no white collar, nobody. No one's ever raised a flag in the company premises. It's been a decade plus now, no one's ever done that. Right? You see how things change, right? How you can buy and build, I wouldn't say buy is the wrong choice of word here, right? How you can manage perception by using media as a tool, media as a channel, right? And that's so critical here. That is something that that that's what I call the power of PR, right? How perceptions can be built, or built or changed as a matter of fact, right? How things of these sort of can be achieved. Of course, it does. We spoke about it. It boosts sales and awareness. That's of course a given here. And for startups particularly, it'll, if you're looking at, not when I say PR, right, I'm not just talking about mainstream media. I'm talking about the shadow marketing you can do, the articles that you're reading, because even your talent that you want to hire today, let's say as a startup founder, one of the fundamental keys that how do I hire good talent to my company, right? These articles are also read by, fellow passionate techpreneurs, right? And they become your co-founders, want to be joining the company. So getting great talent, PR actually helps in getting great talent as well. Everybody knows Rahul Yadav, the poster boy. The one thing, I'm sure all of you guys tomorrow will be great entrepreneurs, really successful. But one thing you should know is that when it comes to the media, it will hail you, it'll cheer you, it'll also bring you down. There is no friend in the media, as simple as that. And I've heard this not just from, I'll give you a classic example. I was handling the Kingfisher account, the Kingfisher beer, not beer account, the airline. I felt really sorry because when I was coming from here, I saw one Kingfisher aircraft lying in absolute, this thing on the road here. And I was like, God, what happened? Those are those days. I'll give you an example here. As I was talking about Vijay Mallya, right? So we used to, let's say, for example, he had typically had this habit, Friday evening press conferences. So Friday evening, we'll have a press conference in Bombay, 5 p.m. This guy catches the flight from Bangalore at 5 p.m. 2 hours later, 2.5 hours later, he's at the press conference. He took the media for granted. So when you're on a high, do not take the media for granted, right? They're writing great stories about you. You feel great that the entire community, the media community is writing about you. Superb. But when the lows started happening, I remember the chief editor of Mint calling me and telling me, he's a friend of mine. He said, you know what, Vijay called. I said, God, what did he say? He said, you started writing negative articles about me. I said, what did you say? He said, it is my job. He said, I'm getting paid for doing that, right? And that is exactly the point here, guys, that there is no friend in the media. His job, the media's job, is to write about you, not write for you. There is a huge fundamental difference in that, right? People get carried away, and that's what exactly happened with our man here, Rahul Yadav. Got carried away with all the success, thought those huge billboards and all the media buying actually brought the media towards his side. That doesn't work that way. That's one lesson. Second lesson, he took on the Goliaths of the industry. He took on the entire VC, the angel investing community, right? Writing emails. He thought he could take them on. Bad mistake. And number 3, of course, you don't go behind the daughters, right? You don't just accuse somebody and say that, you don't understand investing. That's something you should not be doing, right? This is what happens, why I'm saying this is simply because what happens to a lot of us, right? Once we get a certain kind of, how do I say this? Once we get a certain kind of fame, right? It works counterproductive. That's why I've written there very clearly, right? Fame is a bee. It has honey, it has a sting, and it has wing too, right? As long as you're tasting the honey, it feels great. But the day it stings, it goes. So the aspect to remember is that when you're communicating, ensure that your communication stays to a certain point. Your public profile, your personal profile is very important, as well as important as your professional profile is as important as your personal profile as well. While Rahul Yadav is a case that happened a couple of years ago, we have the poster boy today, Ranveer, right? What happened? Look at him. The Supreme Court telling him that, hey, you know what? You can't be doing any more content for God knows till when. He is losing every kind of, subscriber base across his channel. His credibility that he's built, the effort that he's taken to build his credibility over a period of time is gone. Right? What are the kind of lessons that we learn here? Is that when it comes to managing our reputation, right? As entrepreneurs, as today's CEOs, young CEOs in companies, or young techpreneurs that you guys are, your personal reputation matters. How you behave in public today, let's say, today you probably not, you just started a startup, you're at a brawl in a pub somewhere. The very next day, you get a large funding amount, and what happens is that somebody posts that video online. What does the investor say? You know what? I think I'm going to think about investing in this guy again because he shoots off the hook. Your behavior is reflecting there, right? So investors, when they're backing a company, they're not just looking at backing an idea, they're also looking at backing an individual, his passion, his commitment, his behavior, all of that they look at, right? So your public profile, what you behave in person, what you behave in public has to be always impeccable. Your brand, your personal brand matters a lot, right? As you take on as new companies, ensure that that fundamental aspect always remains. And I think with that, we end the session. I thank you all for your time. I hope this was I had fun talking to you guys, so yeah.